Can you believe they made 4 Hannibal Lecter movies? 5 with Manhunter, plus the show, and the upcoming Clarice show, and this drawing I did. I thought it would be fun to watch them all and see how they stack up, both to each other and to our modern movie sensibilities. And by fun, I mean I found a new way to turn watching movies, something I love, into a chore. Anyways, this isn't about how I'm broken and destroying what I love for dwindling YouTube views. This is about a series of 90s and 2000s horror thrillers that's much less depressing. I'm not really going to be breaking down any of the plots, but I won't be avoiding spoilers either. So here's your warning. I'm Greg, and this is a look back at the Hannibal Lecter movies. Let's do this. So I'm not going to be spending too much time on this one, not because I don't think I have much to say, but because it's been talked to death. Rightfully so, because this is a fantastic film. The acting trio of Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, and Anthony Held is excellent. The way they all play off each other is great. It's effortless in its antagonistic nature. Like, if you honestly told me they hated each other in real life, I'd believe you, because they're just so good at it on screen. The use of framing to replicate the male gaze is not news here, but nevertheless it's fantastic. Combined with the great directing of the power dynamics between Hannibal and Clarice, Jonathan Demme is serving up just an award-winning recipe, pun intended. Ted Levine is just perfect in the creepy role that is Buffalo Bill. He was so good that he was like typecast and had a lot of trouble getting work for years after. And while that sucks, I totally get it because he's so singular in the role. He just nails it. This film is so satisfying just on every level. It never lets up, but it also never feels rushed. It neither shies away from the gore or pushes it to excess. It's somehow both plot and character driven. The balance is some of the best film has to offer.
Hannibal.
After the momentous sweep Silence of the Lambs did at the Oscars, it only took us like 10 quick years to get the sequel. Anthony Hopkins is the only major player returning from the original, with Julianne Moore and Ridley Scott taking over for Jodie Foster and Jonathan Demme, respectively. It follows Starling and Lecter's only surviving victim, as they both, in their own way, try to hunt down Hannibal. It sprawls over several countries, and we see both characters' perspectives, as well as Lecter's life since breaking out and Eaton Chilton. The character of Hannibal plays a much larger role in this, letting Anthony Hopkins show off how good he really is in the role. He hams it up so much, and I mean that in the best way possible. I mean, he's great in it, even though I think the character is in far too much of this movie. I do wish that they didn't take him in the direction that they did, because I'm not really a fan of that creepy stalker thing they had him doing with Clarice, but he's still killing it. Another pun intended. Julianne Moore gives it a great go with her take on Clarice. You know, thanks to the time jump between the movies, she doesn't have to play the character the same way Foster does, letting her make it her own. And while the performance never quite steps out of Foster's shadow, it stands well on its own, and that's all you can really ask for. Let's get it out of the way. I think the Mason Verger makeup rules. And so does Gary Oldman's performance. His very existence is unique to this film, and it never really overstays its welcome. It's also cool that he's a bedridden character, and Clarice is being held back by the FBI, essentially mirroring each other because they're both characters who are being held back by the actions Hannibal has taken against them. Another thing that makes the Verger character unique to these movies is that unlike the other, I guess we'll call them secondary villains, he's not a working serial killer. He's out for revenge, and that centers all plots on the titular Hannibal. Ridley Scott brings a lot of his visual style to the movie. Gorgeous contrast, a cool blue cast over most of the scenes, all excellent, but lacks the vision that Silence of the Lambs has in its framing. Scott has a few quick cut shots over evidence. It's got a very Seven feeling influence. That would make sense, as it was the big serial killer movie that came out between Silence of the Lambs and this. Also like Seven, this film is a very graphic one, compared to Demme's film, which is much more restrained than this. The pacing is also quite slow, which is part of Ridley Scott's style, but when you combine that with the more sprawling nature of the film, it becomes a lot less focused, or at least feels so because of it. The movie's definitely a worthwhile watch, but definitely leaves you wanting more. It's amazing that this film is as good as it is, being that it was directed by a subhuman dumpster fire. This one is a prequel to the others, even though the book was the first one to come out. It focuses on a former FBI agent, Will Graham, and his search for the Tooth Fairy, and his reluctant need to go to Lecter for help, despite their past. Anthony Hopkins feels a lot more menacing in this than he did in Hannibal. Apparently that was his goal while making this, and I think it works. His role in this is pretty much the same as it was in Silence of the Lambs, but I think that's how he works best. I also like his connection to Dollarhide that happens later in the film. I think it adds a nice little wrinkle to the plot and keeps it from being a carbon copy of the first movie. Edward Norton is pretty good as Will Graham. He definitely pulls off the scenes where he's putting everything together. You can see the gears moving in his head. I don't think he plays the damaged side of Will very well. I get that he's a trained agent and should be able to cover up his pain, but it makes the performance a tad one note for me. It's fun seeing Chilton again. As a prequel, you don't really get to develop his character too much, but they use him well in this smaller role. Philip Seymour Hoffman is the GOAT. Everything he does in this and every movie he's ever done just feels so effortless. It's perfect, always. Ralph Fiennes as the Tooth Fairy is fantastic. Seriously, these movies always do their secondary villains well. There's a pain all over that performance, and I guess that makes him a counter to Will. Maybe that was intentional. Anyways, I really enjoyed it. The style of the film seems to be a mixtape of the prior two. It keeps Hannibal's blood splatter in the crime scenes and has a decent amount of blue tint throughout. It counterbalances it with the Silence of the Lambs control, keeping from relishing in the violence without losing its shock value. The film doesn't bring anything new to its style. To me, it just feels like the pastiche of the other two. Not surprising, as the director's work kinda just seems to be that, do what others have done before. That said, there is something about the late 90s and early 2000s, specifically the thriller movies that came out then, that I really dig. They all have their own flavor, but a certain baseline that I really enjoy. It's a big part of why I dig another Anthony Hopkins movie, Fracture, as much as I do. Ridley Scott may have made some choices I didn't enjoy in his film, but I do prefer that to the safe way this directing gremlin played it in Red Dragon. Alright, so Hannibal Rising is fucking trash. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you watched a bit of the beginning with me, but this is yeah, it's bad. So for people watching this, no one, but for people who might watch this in the future when we're all long and dead, it's really bad in every way. The guy playing Hannibal, it's not just like that he's like not good in the role. Like his problem is the same problem with the writing, where they're not really making Hannibal. They're just making a sociopath or a psychopath or whatever the actual term is, whatever, a thing that they're doing stylistically where like the flashbacks are like slow-mo and grainy, which would have been cool if they didn't also just use it in a present day moment once or twice.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
His family dies. These like guys who are Nazis, but worse because they also betray Nazis.
Oh, I was there for that part.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, like they can't just be Nazis. They have to be worse than Nazis. Yeah. They do that. Then he's in his old family home, but now it's like a weird communist orphanage thing, and he escapes. Ooh. You want to get real mad?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Always.
So he goes to live with the only family member he has left. His widowed aunt who like married into his family, who is an Asian woman, which is cool because it's representative, until no, she's just there to teach him cool samurai stuff. Yeah. And they have this thing where like at one point he puts on like the face part of a samurai mask.
Oh, I walked in at that moment and I was wondering what the fuck is that?
Right?
Oh,
right? It's because it looks like the thing that they put on his And then they fall in love.
Excuse me?
Yeah, but they can't be together because he's also eating people. Yeah. It's this weird thing where like she gets kidnapped in the third act despite the fact that she herself can kick ass because she taught him how to kick ass, but not enough because a man hasn't saved her. And then she's like, no, we can just leave. You've gotten your revenge. You don't have to eat him and be Hannibal. And then he's like, no, I've got to be Hannibal. Because if not, then the other movies don't make sense. And it's so fucking bad. I kind of want to do that gag that some like videos essayists do where they like have to like drink part way through, but I also don't want, like, this movie has enough cliches. My video doesn't need to have it as well. And
well, I mean, the first 20 minutes just showed that it was going to be a bad movie.
oh my god, it's terrible. It's
Like, I don't understand that score. It felt like it was trying to do like a Lord of the Rings or something.
it has like that like vocal orchestral thing going, which is dumb.
And it felt fantastical, and I was like,
Yeah. Like, and because of the like war setting that they were going for, combining it makes you feel like it's going to be some like Pan's Labyrinth thing. But no. A movie made by an English studio for an English audience, and it does the whole, oh, everyone's just talking with accents instead of in languages. You know, it doesn't necessarily bother me in movies, but it definitely bothers me in bad movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think there are 3 different languages not spoken in this movie.
Really?
I think. I'm not sure. You can never really tell. And that's what gets annoying, because, like, make your main non-English language English is one thing, but to just do it for everything is just assuming that your audience is too dumb to read.
Yeah.
And Hannibal keeps stealing his Asian aunt's katana to murder people with, and it saves his life at the end. Because it's like it's hidden in his back and he gets shot in the spine, but not really, it just destroyed her family heirloom. But she still kisses him in that same scene. Because it's a bad fucking movie.
I mean, yeah.
I think we got it.
I think so. I think you said everything you wanted to say. Did you say everything you wanted to say?
Stop filming. Anyways, it's bad. And that about wraps it up. I guess if I were to rank these movies, it would be Silence of the Lambs at the obvious first place, then Red Dragon, Hannibal, and Hannibal Rising last. Now, did we learn anything from this?
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't fucking know either.
I guess the moral of the story is that some movies are good and others aren't. Man, I really hoped to have come to some kind of like epiphany after watching all of these. Should I try this again? Maybe comparing the 3 adaptations of Red Dragon? Let me know. Till next time, have a good one.